myself again.
Good evening and welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith. It is Tuesday night, which means it is Liam Kennedy night, and this will be interesting because it's hotting up on the transfer front, Liam. Well,
it is.
Well, there's one player potentially coming in. He hasn't actually signed yet, but I mean that's about as hot as it gets at St James's Park, isn't it?
No, it is, and it depends on your mindset, I suppose. I've kind of known that he was the number one target and that kind of had all our eggs in one basket with him. So a lot of the other stuff you hear around it's noise. I've been on the other side as well, where I'm a fan and I'm wanting action and I'm getting anxious, I'm getting angry the longer it goes on when other teams are signing players. But I've kind of I've not allowed myself to get carried away this summer because I know that's who they've wanted. And to me, if they go and get the one player who transformed them really from being a side who were fighting at the bottom to scoring 7 or 8 goals that were really crucial in Newcastle, ending with a lower mid-table finish. If they go and sign that player again who did have a transformative effect on the rest of the players, then I think that's a really positive move. I think it's a success. It was the main target they had this summer. And if they go and get their man and spend money doing it, which kind of blows out the water all of this crap, which I've said on this show numerous times, like this. Newcastle United will not tell anybody, and I think anybody regular listeners to this show have heard me say this like a broken record. If Newcastle United have got a budget of £100 million, they'll not tell anybody that. If they've got a budget of £10 million, they'll not tell anybody that either. It doesn't make any sense in financial dealings to tell everybody what your hand is. So look, the idea it was around £10 million or wherever that may have come from. Yeah, obviously we knew it was going to be tight, but with Newcastle United, there isn't really a hard and fast rule under Mike Ashley, and I've said this before, that there isn't a meeting at the start of the month and they'll say, right, this is how much we've got, and it's kind of like if they can make a case for a player, which obviously Mike Ashley was present at some of the games at the end of last season, in one in particular, and he did see him in action. Justin Barnes, who pulls the financial strings, was at virtually all of the games that Joe Willock played. It was a pretty easy case for Steve Bruce to make, to say, look, we're going to sign this player for X amount. That all of this sort of me saying it's a success in some ways, getting the man over the line, which he isn't yet, but I expect he will be. I think we do need more. It isn't an absolute success. And there are areas of the team where you'd look and say, are Newcastle United weak in terms of numbers? Yes. Dwight Gale was the one we mentioned last week, where you go, have Newcastle United really got enough as a backup? It's caused a bit of controversy on here at times, and I get messages about it outside of the show, but I was very clear in the mindset of the way that the squad has been built and put together, and I'll make that clear again to everybody else. But effectively, Alan St Maximin is a forward in this system. So there's Alan St Maximin and Callum Wilson as your two forwards. Then you back up to that's Joe Linton and Dwight Gale, and I think that's where the problem comes. Joe Linton can add value, a different kind of option. You need that as forward players. Dwight Gale needs to be goals if Joe Linton isn't. And Dwight Gale hasn't really proven until that final game of pre-season that he may have goals in him. But we'll temper that with the idea that he was playing a Norwich side who are really sort of under strength. They were weakened by COVID the previous weeks. And are freshly promoted as well. So there's that. I think anybody predicting the final Premier League tables, if that's even a thing, would put most would put Norwich in the bottom 3. I know I did when I did my predictions for our brand new publications. Publications websites that are starting this week, and I'm heading up the Newcastle World arm of that. We were asked with our writers from Liverpool, Manchester, all over the country, London, etc., to make predictions, and I think the 3 that came up will probably go down. That's my prediction. So you've got to temper that Dwight Gale's banging goals in against a team who were a championship side 3 months ago. Well, that's what Dwight Gale does. We know that, but can he transform that into becoming a regular Premier League scorer? When he was given the opportunity, despite causing some problems last season, behind the scenes, problems is the wrong word, despite kicking up a fuss about not getting a game, as we've obviously reported, Steve, we've reported that on here. He eventually got his turn in the team and didn't really do anything. Didn't really look like he could make an impact. whether he was fully fit, whether he'd totally gone off the boil, having not really had any minutes. You could argue that. He had a poor pre-season because it was basically taken up by injury largely. So it wasn't a great season for Dwight Gale. And I would be honest, you've been at all of the games, I think, Steve, this summer. And Dwight Gale, up until Sunday, is cut like a figure who, and I don't really mean this to be harsh, but kind of watching it, you look at him and say, is he up for the fight? Does he look like a player who's hungry to get in this side? They're playing with 2 forwards. He's got a bloody good chance of getting in the side. And injuries sort of come the way of Callum Wilson or whoever, then he's in straight away. Did he look like that? I would say no for most of the 5 games previous to Norwich. Came on in the second half at Norwich, and forget the 2 smart finishes. Actually looked hungry. He looked like he wanted to chase everything down. So that's a positive sign. But that was one place in particular, looking ahead transfer-wise, that I would say Newcastle don't just need numbers. I wouldn't say they need another striker, because they've got 4 who play that position, and that's all you need, really. They've got 4. They just need an upgrade on one of the 4 at least. And it doesn't look like they're going to do that, in my opinion. I would argue that one other area that is of significance would be they do probably need to bring another midfielder in on top of Joe Willock, and that's one thing that Steve Bruce wants. But furthermore to that, I would say that an athletic defender is an absolute must. I think we've seen in pre-season so far that any kind of pace, direct running, power just has Newcastle United at 6s and 7s. Kieran Clark's had a particularly poor pre-season. Federico Fernandez has been okay. Jamal Lascelles looks bulked up. He looks big, strong. Is he going to lose a little bit of his, he hasn't got great pace, but he's going to lose a little bit of that speed. He's probably the only one who has got any sense of speed in that defensive line. And that's the major problem for Steve Bruce, is that he's got a group of 6 defenders, none of whom are blessed with pace. None of them are particularly athletic. And I look at that back 3, and again, this is one thing where people say, we've got rid of... I've seen a lot of this week, and it's one thing that people need to understand about the building of a squad, and they need to sort of try and tap into the idea of what Bruce might be doing. I see a lot of... They've let 2 defenders go. Lejeune's gone, and Watts has gone now. Everyone's like, that's the worst. I've seen some people come on to me on Twitter the other day. So that's the worst decision I've ever seen this taken by the management, all this kind of thing. We're letting Kel Watts, who's a 21-year-old lad, who realistically has only played 2 seasons at lower level, needs more games. Ask anybody who watched Plymouth Argyle last season, and Kel Watts did well this pre-season in the games and the minutes that he had. He looked composed, looked solid. But there's a big difference between playing pre-season and playing Premier League football. That's something that people sometimes don't quite compute. And there is a big difference. And ask anybody who watched Plymouth Argyle regularly this season, and I have, and he was patchy. He was a young lad who still needs to play more games and learn. So he's gone to Wigan. Will he ever be a centre-half at Newcastle United? We'll find out this season. If he goes to Wigan and becomes more consistent and improves, which I hope he does, then he might come back next season at 22 and have a chance at breaking into that pack of 6. But building a squad, Newcastle United have already got 6 defenders for those 3 positions, plus Isaac Hayden as a 7, if needed, as cover, which is why he might well keep his place in this midfield shake-around that's going on at the moment. You look at the back 3, and on the right-hand side of a back 3, it looks to me he's going to play Emil Kraft, who ended last season. Look, I'm not a massive Emil Kraft fan, but that looks like what he's going to do. The alternative to that is probably someone like Fabian Shaw. Then on the left, you would probably, I think, play Paul Dummett if he was fit. Injury problems, as ever, plague Paul Dummett. Kieran Clark is the next obvious fit in that position. And then you have the 2 defenders who both, when you take either of Jamal Lascelles or Federico Fernandez out of that central role in the 3, they look like a fish out of water. They really do, because they are central defenders. They play okay in a 2 together. But in this 3, you need to have a little bit more in the width. So they actually have 6 defenders to play the positions, whether you like the quality of that or not. But what I would say in building a squad of 25, and the arguments with people saying, you've got to keep Watts, he would have actually qualified in the 25 this year, as does Matty Longstaff. You can't just collect players. Newcastle United have had this position before, whereby you'll be sitting with Jack Colback, with his hand, sort of, not playing, not training. Christian Atsu doing the same. Yoshinori Muto. All these type of players, that Ashraf Lazar, Henri Saive. What's the point? They need to build a proper 25-man squad. You can't carry passengers. And if your budget's tight, which we know it is, the last thing in the world you want is to have more players than you need. You'd rather have that quality in the squad. So I would look to say they will sign at least one more. As long as Willock gets done, I think they'll at least sign one more, and that'll free up a space. And I suspect that might be a Matty Longstaff maybe has to shift along or something like that. I do know that, look, I think they'd probably listen to offers for Jeff Hendrick if they could. Sean Longstaff's an interesting one because we know that it's not harmonious there. And Rafa Benitez does like Sean Longstaff as a player. But speaking to people at the Everton end, I'm told Everton are having FFP problems, all this kind of thing. And Rafa's having to sort of adjust around with some of those players. He's got the likes of Fabian Delph on big money who he could shift if he could, but it's getting rid of players like that, Gomez and others in that midfield department, whereby he maybe could look at a Sean Longstaff down the line. I'm not saying he is. I don't know if he is. But you would have to shift players on before doing that kind of thing. So I think there will be some moves and shakes in the last couple of weeks of this window. Whether it's the level of moves and shakes that everybody out there wants, but you've stayed patient so far. And I think if Newcastle United do get Joe Willock, which it looks pretty sure like they're going to get him, then I would say, so I seen a journalist, I can't remember who it was, describe it, maybe Mark Douglas, the Chronicle. I don't want to wrongly attribute it, but I think it was. And he described it as Steve Bruce is playing a game of transfer poker this summer. And ultimately, if he gets his man, then he's played a really good hand, and he's played it. He's done really well to get the player, not only to force the club to put the cash down and do the deal, but also that panic. A lot of people might have panicked a little bit before now. I know everybody out there. I was saying, come on, you've got to get you. We maybe have to move on. But Steve Bruce seems to have, to this point, played a really clever game, I think, on the transfer front this summer, if, as we expect, Joe Willock comes through the door in the next couple of days.
Stu Penman had a bet on there. I think that you were going to go over to beat your record, but you haven't tonight. You've been very good. 12 minutes and 55 seconds for the first answer. We're going to have to start running a bit of a book on it, mate. But
what was my record? Because I'll beat it next week if he's won.
26 minutes last week. You took us to the sponsors, I think, if I remember rightly. But I knew you weren't going to do that. I mean, let's just have a quick word about Bobix as well, mate. I know, that was your very first Newcastle United talk, and you'd done one up in Dundee before. But what was your feeling? How did you think it went? Any message for people who came along?
Really positive, and it really blew me away that the level of support. It just surprised me that there was that many people wanted to even come and listen to sort of me talking, and it really blew us away that there was so many people there, and so many people were generous with their cash, sticking, not only buying tickets but sticking money in the raffle, and it really goes towards a good cause, and it really makes it that few hours of everybody's time makes it so worthwhile. We had Bill Corcoran up on stage, we had Steve Hasty there as well, who were both heavily involved in the food bank, and to hear Bill describe how many people that this could help really blew me away. It really did. It was quite emotional actually to know that just that few hours, that sort of positivity that we brought can have a real tangible impact on people out there. I think it was 82 families, then it went up to 102 families helped over the course of 7 days, 3 meals a day. Family of 4, and it was working out at something like 8,000 meals in total just by doing that night, and it really blew me away. And I want to say a heartfelt thank you to everybody out there who not only attended but helped support it online, and bought raffle tickets and everything. I really, really want to say a big thank you to everybody out there.
Yeah, me too. Great night, and looking forward to getting back up there soon. And great to see the food bank back out at St James's Park as well. And fair play, Liam. Steve Bruce popping down there. I know Steve Hasty will be giving us an insight into the meeting with Steve Bruce on Friday night show. But just a bit of positive PR to start the season from the manager.
Really good. really good, because it has been an area that we've maybe questioned a little bit. Has Steve done enough?
Oh, I'm keeping an eye on questions, and Liam's gone. Okay, I'll run the sponsors here. Liam was having a little bit of bother with his internet, I think, earlier on, so that will be the reason why he was late. But I'll bring you back in a second, Liam. I'm going to run through the sponsors while you are sorting out the internet at your end. As always, big thank you to Spider VPN. Just download Spider VPN, and they will help out your computer, protect your passwords, protect your photographs, and everything else. Google them. They come up at the top of the search engine, and you will be able to get a great deal from Spider VPN. Just mention NUFC Matters. Also, a big shout out to another one of our main sponsors, skipsandbins.com. Telephone 0800 25 45 25 3. Email inquiries at skipsandbins.com. Website www.skipsandbins.com. Easy, contract free, and pay-as-you-go waste collection. Also, a big shout out to John, who was in the chat. qtechshop.co.uk. Makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wallsend, Newcastle, and to John at Jab Signature, who creates all of our flyers. And we also have two new sponsors for this month, L&G Family Funeral Directors. Give them a call if you need their assistance on 0191 389 7245. And Darren Baldwin, good to see him back, sponsored us last year during lockdown. He is an independent funeral director. 304 Old Durham Road is where you can catch him. Telephone 0191 478 273 or email Darren at darrenbaldwinfunerals.co.uk. The website, very similar, www.darrenbaldwinfunerals.co.uk. Big shout out to them for coming on board this month. Still chance to get tickets as well for the Supermac evening, which is at the Farmhouse Kitchen on August the 19th. And me and Malcolm, as you know, usually do the pre-match each week at the Dog and Parrot. This week it'll be Joe Allen and Supermac at the Dog and Parrot from 12:30 onwards. And don't forget as well, our website is nufcmatters.com. You can pick up some rather snazzy looking t-shirts on there, all run by John at QTech. If you're a first-time visitor to the channel, hit the Newcastle Legends logo in the bottom right-hand corner, and that's it. You can subscribe for free. Hit the thumb up to like the video, click share to share to your social media, and drop into the comments box to talk to like-minded Newcastle fans. And if you miss us live on YouTube and you are out and about, you can catch us on all your podcast providers such as Spotify and iTunes. Yeah, we were talking about Steve Bruce, Liam, and just great to see him actually give up that time before the game to go across and see the lads from the food bank, Steve Hasty and them.
Yeah, very much so. I don't know what happened there. I saw it. It must have just dropped out, and then I was still there. I could still see everything, and it seemed to be in the waiting room straight away. But anyway, yeah, Steve Bruce didn't have to do that. It's probably been one of the criticisms that we've had over the time that he's been here. Has he done enough to sort of ingratiate himself? Has he done enough to sort of reconnect with the area that he's from? And I think this was a good step in the right direction, a really positive thing to do. And hopefully it's something that the club will allow him to continue to do. And he will want to do more himself, because I think it's a really important part of being a manager, particularly at our football club, that you need a little bit of that. You can't be distant. The last manager previous to him got that and was really involved, and others have previously as well. And I think that's a really important part of being a Newcastle United manager. You're not just a manager, you've got to connect with the people. And the distance hasn't helped, and the situation hasn't helped. I wrote a piece this week, which should go up online at some point, that I genuinely, look, I think anybody who watches the show will know I'm not a Steve Bruce apologist in any way, shape or form. But I don't think circumstances have particularly helped his situation. Taking the football out of the equation, the distance hasn't been a great thing. It's hasn't allowed him to come across particularly well. But I think you'll get a little bit of time off, fans. I don't think anybody will jump off a cliff with him. I think if results go badly in the first 2 or 3 weeks, then it'll probably get a bit iffy. But ultimately, he can only do what's within his power, and reconnecting with the community and helping local charities and getting involved in local initiatives is one thing that should be high up on his list. Doesn't seem to have been, because he hasn't done a lot of that kind of thing. But let's hope he's turned over a new leaf, and let's hope it can continue, because it really was a positive step.
Yeah, very positive. Okay, lots of questions coming in, Liam. As always, do your best to answer them as you can, and obviously take the transfers are what is dominating the chat. James was first in, so we always do that person the honour of getting the question in. He just wants to know, if you could have one signing plus Willock this window for Newcastle, who would it be? His would be Rondon.
That's a really tough question. I can only give positions. I'm not going to go into detail of who I would. But like I've said before, I think there needs to be some athleticism brought into the back line. I think it's an aging, slow, less than athletic group, and I think it needs brightening up. It really does. So I would think a defender with some kind of pace and athleticism, not Phil Jones, not Nat Phillips. I hope somebody doesn't cut this up when Nat Phillips is signed for Newcastle, but I just don't see it. He was thrown in at Liverpool in really difficult circumstances and did a solid job. But it's like, no, it's not for me. He's not good enough to play for Liverpool. He's nowhere good enough to play for Newcastle either, in my opinion. I may be proved wrong. Rob Holden, I think, is slightly different, but I don't really think that's on the cards. I think they do retain an interest in Rob Holden, but I think looking at Arsenal's squad, Rob Holden will probably stay, I would imagine. If they do let him go, it may well be a loan, and Newcastle could be interested then. I don't think, although Rob Holden's not pacey and athletic, he is a better version of Nat Phillips, and you could maybe get away with that. He is a bit more youthful than the current pack of defenders as well. But yeah, I think they need to add some pace and athleticism into that back three, because it's all getting a bit stale, I think, in that area. And of course, a midfielder. I was going to say, I've always looked at an upgrade on John Joe Shelby. That's what I've always looked at in the midfield. Steve, you were there. You were at St James's on Saturday, and he was absolutely phenomenal when he came on. And it's that kind of 45 minutes you get from John Joe Shelby too, not often enough.
Yeah, let's hope he hasn't used that up and then the next 10 games are stinkers, because that's what he tends to do. And then he plays a worldie like he did against Norwich, and I just hope he hasn't wasted that.
But the midfield battle was lost in that first half. Sean Longstaff did not impose himself on the game. He was bullied in the game, to be honest. And as much as I want Sean Longstaff to work, this is his time. You either step up now or the door's there, really. I think it's one of those moments. That's not me giving him that ultimatum. I think that's kind of the position that we find ourselves in. And he needs to step up, and he hasn't. He hasn't stepped up, unfortunately. And I think you brought John Joe Shelby back into that side there, and it was transformed. It was gone from Billy Gilmore literally dictating everything on the park to all of a sudden John Joe Shelby just wrestled that straight back off him with that bit of experience and that bit of intensity. And it's there where John Joe Shelby makes you think again. And he does this so often in his time at Newcastle United. You make your mind up about John Joe Shelby, about all of his faults, and it all comes to the fore. And then you'll have a period in a season where you go, actually, I'm not sure. And what I would say about John Joe Shelby, and everybody who watches this knows I'm not a John Joe Shelby fan at all, is actually this system, he is absolutely crucial to it, because you need somebody who sits deeper and finds players, particularly with the pace up front. When players play on the shoulder, somebody needs to find those players. And he came on quite quickly and spread the ball out to the full-backs, Jacob Murphy on one side and Matt Ritchie on the other side. Spread it really quick, Jamal Lewis, whoever it may be. And John Joe Shelby can do that. Isaac Hayden can't do that. Doesn't have it in his locker. Isaac Hayden was moved slightly to the right to play in that 8 role that Joe Willock will probably play. And all of a sudden it made a massive difference. So yeah, if there's players that I would sign, I would probably still be looking for some kind of midfield reinforcement, because I still think we're light in quality, and something athletic at the back. It's got to be.
Yeah, well, fingers crossed. Tom's asking what your thoughts are on Boubacar Kamara. Again, it's a player we're being linked with in the media. Is there any credence in that?
I don't think there's been a bid, Tom. That's my inkling. I don't think there's been a bid for him. It's a lad in the last year of his contract, and it is being heavily linked. I'm not even sure there's much of an interest there, but I'm happy to be proven wrong on that. I could easily be proven wrong. But just look at the situation. He's a lad in the final year of his contract, and I think there's a little bit of games being played elsewhere.
Okay, John Ditchy says, do you believe young Freddie Woodman's ready for the step up to Premier League football at Newcastle? I thought he had a decent game. I've said it already a couple of times over the last couple of days on shows that the sign of a good keeper is being able to react when you've got little to do, and he pulled off a fantastic save in the second half.
I really like Freddie Woodman. I really like what I've seen in pre-season from him. He's clearly learned as a goalkeeper, and he's come in with a lot of confidence. He can play the ball out, which is what they require. They're trying to play the ball out from the back. It kind of just falls down a little bit further up the park. But he's confident. He comes for a lot. He commands his box. He isn't the biggest of goalkeepers, to be honest. He's not small, but he's quite slight. So he's not the largest of goalkeepers, not an imposing character, hasn't got a Dubravka about him. But I really like him. And I think, look, good question. Is he ready? We'll never know until he's thrown in. And I don't think the idea was to throw him in this season. I think it was the idea, I've said it on here before, was hopefully Swansea got promoted and he probably would have had a season in the Premier League cutting his teeth and then come back to Newcastle ready. Or alternatively, if Newcastle didn't fancy him, Swansea probably would have signed him for decent money if they'd stayed up. That probably would have been the way things played out. But we know in football, you can't make plans like that. And he's actually been handed an opportunity that I don't think he expected, especially not when he was doing his medical down at Bournemouth. I don't think he expected he would suddenly be starting the season. But this is perfect for him. He couldn't have asked for a better opportunity. And I hope he takes it. He has got a lot of experience under his belt, but probably not as much as he should have at that age. He's probably lost around 1.5 to 2 years of development because of these ridiculous Newcastle United caused contract wrangles and things like that have gone on behind the scenes. But look, we'll never know if he's good enough till he tries. And I think for me, he's earned the right to be the goalkeeper. He's the best goalkeeper that they've got, who's fit and ready. And I think ultimately, Darlow won't take too long to come back into the season. So all options are still on the table with Freddie Woodman. It is actually conceivable he could even play the first 3 games of the season potentially and still end up out on loan by September the 1st. Everything is on the table, but I think if he does well, I think he's probably the number 1 jersey at Newcastle's his to lose. Any
news on this? 1892 Mags just asking, are we going to be one of the Premier League grounds which will randomly stop supporters on Sunday to check COVID status? Just there's been no communication from the club about this.
The club put their statement out for just as a timings thing. The club put their COVID protocol statement out on a Thursday ahead of the Saturday game. So just keep an eye out for the end of the week. I've seen the same reports suggesting there's going to be random spot checks. Look, it is what it is. They're the rules. If you want to watch the game, you're just going to have to put up with it, unfortunately, whether it's right or wrong. It's the rules.
Got to say, I mean, it was a friendly. Only 20,000 plus there on the weekend. And it wasn't the greatest experience for supporters getting into the ground. A lot of people being sent to the wrong turnstiles and a lot of people climbing up stairs only to be told at the top of the stairs that they're at the wrong place. Something which really needs to be addressed, I think, by the club, certainly for this weekend. Maybe it was a skeleton staff, would have been a friendly, I don't know, but there was a lot of miscommunication from stewards and staff on the front line. Hopefully that won't continue into the season, but yeah, that was certainly my experience. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's inevitable, to be honest. I think there is going to be a period whereby if you're a fan, and you're the type of fan, which a lot of people are, where you're going to rock up at St. James's Park 5 minutes before the game and expect to walk in, I would try and break your usual mindset, and I would maybe just try and get there a little bit earlier, because it is a bit more of a cautious environment. It is possibly going to take you a little bit longer to get into the ground. And it wouldn't surprise me if, I think we've seen it at Liverpool the other night, we've seen it in Newcastle in pre-season. There may be games which have to be knocked back 15, 20 minutes because of supporter queues outside. So all I would urge to people is just set off in plenty of time. Yes, going to St. James's Park is like sitting in an aircraft hangar. I get that. It isn't the type of place you want to spend a load of time socialising before the game and after it, but I would just allow yourselves a little bit more time and just get your seat nice and early. That's all I would advise. Just use common sense, effectively.
Yeah, that's what I would say. You've got to use your common sense. And as I say, we are living still in strange times. Phil Jones, John Ditchy said, is this serious? We've been linked with him a few times. I mean, again, it's another one. A lot of stuff in the papers. That's how, that's how it works. We know that. But is he somebody you would expect to rock up at Newcastle?
Look, it's not one you can rule out, is what I would say. I think it's unlikely, but it's not one you could rule out because Steve Bruce does like the player. Is it the type of player that I would be signing? Look, I'm not 100% against Phil Jones as a footballer. I don't think he's a bad footballer. And if he's available, which we expect he will be, I think there'll be a lot of clubs want to sign him in the Premier League because he is decent. But the problem with Phil Jones is he's had a big injury, hasn't really played a lot. And is he the, like I said, pacey and athletic defender that Newcastle United require to improve the wider areas of their back three? And the argument is quite simple for me that it's a no.
Yeah, I wouldn't be celebrating if he came. I've got to be perfectly honest. Something unrelated to Newcastle, PSG, of course, looks like they've done the deal with Messi in 5 days. I see a lot of people laughing in the chat that we can't even complete the Willock deal in, 4 or 5 weeks. But how are PSG able to operate, says Stuart, when player wages are about 99% of the running costs? It is crazy football nowadays.
Yeah, it's really crazy. I can't answer that question. I don't know the ins and outs of how PSG work, unfortunately.
Mad, isn't it?
I'd have to do some reading on that, but they've got quite an incredible front line, and you would imagine that this is their time to really have a go at the Champions League. And I would imagine if they don't win a Champions League with a star-studded front line that they have, then I think there's something going seriously wrong there.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I just, I'm just, blown away by some of the financial stats that get put out there. I mean, £25 million a year Messi's on. Jack Grealish going to Man City, 200 grand a week. It's ludicrous, absolutely ludicrous. And I mean, I remember raising an eyebrow when Alan Shearer arrived at St James's Park for 15 million. I mean, we're living in crazy times, Liam.
Totally crazy. Money's just it's almost unreal, isn't it? It's like you're picking your fantasy football team for your week. You know what I mean? It's not real money, is what it seems like, and it is like paper money to state-owned football clubs. Newcastle United might have known about that. They might have known about that at one point. Things don't look great on that front, unfortunately. There's been a number of forces at play to stop anything like that even being talked about, even to a lesser degree in Newcastle United, which is a massive frustration to everybody. But yeah, it's crazy money. It's all fantasy football.
Mad Mark, good evening. He just wants to know if the £5 to £6 million that the Adam Armstrong deal is going to generate when he goes to Southampton, if that's in your mind going to go into the transfer pot for Steve Bruce.
It's all very simple looking at deals and finances and saying X amount will land in Newcastle United's bank account tomorrow. It's not always the way these deals work, so we'll probably not know the exact fee. We'll probably not know the way that's paid. We won't even know the exacts of the clause. Is it 40% for one? Is it 40% of total fee? Is it 40% of profit above what they paid for him? We don't know. So I'm not going to speculate. Look, I think everybody would hope it's a boost in Newcastle United's coffers. But it sounds like Newcastle United are going to spend much bigger than anybody expected this summer, which to me has got to be a positive thing. And if the Armstrong money was factored into that, well, I think it's more than Newcastle United expected. We expect Newcastle United to spend, so we can't complain either. Like I say, the way I look at it is I think they'll sign one. If they could maybe do a deal for another, it would be a cheap one, I would imagine. But you never know. And I suspect they'll probably at least take up one of the domestic loans anyway. As they've got 2 available, they'll probably definitely take up one of those. And like I say, I expect it may be a defensive midfielder or somebody to play, like I say, as an athletic, pacey defender. Hopefully.
Dino asks about Matty Longstaff. He says, Matty hasn't played a full season at any level. Why don't we send him on loan?
It's just not... Look, at the end of the day, the situation with the Longstaff just isn't right. And we've known that for some time. I don't know if that situation will get fixed or not. Now, it's impossible to know, but pre-season would tell you that does it look like it's been fixed much? Sean hasn't really pulled up many trees despite starting every single, I think, almost every single one. Definitely the visible ones, he started them all. Has he really impressed, bar maybe a couple of flashes? Not really. No, he hasn't. And Matty himself started the Burnley game behind closed doors, but was the only player on the bench on Saturday not to get off the bench. I think that's very telling. I think that is very telling. And I think he's got 1 year left on his deal. Things aren't working out the way either of those lads thought they would. And I like them both individually as players. But I think if Steve Bruce can improve on those players in this window, then you might see one, if not both, go.
Yeah, I would agree. Plenty of questions flying in, trying to get through as many of them as possible. Andrew Smith just wants to know what the hold-up is with Willock.
There's not a hold-up. There hasn't been a hold-up. It's like I don't know what everyone's keep going on about. That doesn't seem at this stage. I'm only purely going off timescales here. I've not heard of a hold-up. If you've heard there is one, please share it. But I've not heard of any hold-up. And realistically, I mean, we don't know when the fee was agreed. I expect it was probably later on Sunday. But it's not a lot of time, really. It's not a lot of time at all to sort things out. The club will announce it when they want to announce it. I don't really think there's been a hold-up. We see all these online speculative accounts talking about, he's going to West Ham instead, or he's going, this is happening. Just calm down. Don't panic. Raphael Varane sorted his deal with Manchester United and still only just signed last week. People are talking about this Joe Willock thing like it's been going on months. Yes, the interest's been there, but the deal itself has only been a few days. So just chill. It should happen.
Okay, it's a new T-shirt, that, John, when you get yourself back on your feet. Just chill. It will happen from Liam. Any striker deals in the offing, or is it a case of, as you were, Donald, we mentioned that earlier, I think you were slightly late to the broadcast. And Terry, yes, children are allowed to go to the Dog and Parrot on Sunday. And Joe Allen is a good laugh. He's on crutches at the minute, but it doesn't affect his mouth and the jokes that he comes out with, that's for certain. Is it Thursday, 5 o'clock, for Willock to sign and be eligible to play against West Ham? It's Friday, I believe, at midday.
I think in my head, if it's the same as previous seasons, it's Friday lunchtime.
Friday midday, yeah.
But look, Paul, if you've seen somewhere else it says Thursday 5 p.m, please come on, because I haven't checked that fact this week.
Gavin, no, we haven't seen a decline in people watching. We've actually seen an increase. I always post the figures monthly on Twitter that I get from YouTube. And again, we never take it for granted. 520 watching live tonight, Gavin. So I think that answers your question. Malky, good evening, mate. Good to see you back on. Says, absolute disgrace that people need the support from food banks in 2021. However, it's fantastic that these awesome people work so hard, providing a wonderful resource. John Kennedy says, positive PR from Steve Bruce makes a change from deriding the supporters, bigging up the opposition and mocking the ex-manager.
That's a cynic there. That's a cynic speaking.
Absolute classic, that. Like, John, I get where you're coming from, though, mate. A lot of debate going on about my T-shirt, because I've got a Stone Roses T-shirt on, and the Oasis versus the Stone Roses battle is on. Any particular band for you out of those two, Liam? Which one are you?
I would find it really difficult to pick between those two. I mean, I'm probably more likely to go for Oasis. But look, two incredible bands. Have you got an Oasis T-shirt as well?
No, actually. I don't actually possess one. I probably had one back in the day. I've got Noel Gallagher on a T-shirt, which was a Loaded magazine cover, and I don't know where on earth I got that. And it's one of those T-shirts that I've had for years, and it still fits. Do you know what I mean? So, but no, I haven't.
Oh, good stuff.
And
a man of many T-shirts.
I am a man of many T-shirts. Andy says, when did Uncle Fester have a good period last season? That's in reference to your Shelby comment about him, occasionally having good periods.
Well, what I would say is he was very good. He was actually decent the season previous, was end up as a top scorer. And last season, from memory, the last couple of games of the season, he did start to perform. Or towards the back end of the season, I thought his performance has improved. But but it wasn't great last season. I'm not going to stick up for him. You're coming at me with that, and anybody who watches this show regular know I'm as far from a John Joe Shelby fan as can be possible. But what I'm trying to say is, in this system, it's perfect for John Joe Shelby. Whether he's able to produce in that position, I'm not so sure.
Okay, could you see Murphy playing at left wing back rather than Kraft? Says Craig Irvine.
Do you mean right?
Right wing back, I think.
Kraft plays right central defender, and Murphy will probably play right wing back.
Okay, there we go. That's a simple answer to that. Shelby is August on my Toon calendar, and I hate looking at it, says Flapjack.
Just draw, you could. I'll tell you what you could do. Draw a little goatee beard on it, and it suddenly becomes Steve Wraith.
Ah, it's a classic. Dave Avery, good evening. Was good to see you at Bobix again. Not a Shelby apologist, but do you think his downturn in form was down to lockdown and playing in front of a crowd suits his game? Interesting take.
It is interesting, Dave. I suppose I don't know. Does playing in front of a crowd suit John Joe Shelby's game? I'm not so sure. I think John Joe Shelby just is John Joe Shelby. He'll be inconsistent. You get a good game, 1 in 7 or 8 out of him, and it'll be an incredible game. But the rest of it is mostly dross. But hopefully, seeing him the way he's come back in pre-season, looks fully fit, looks ready. And hopefully we'll see a bang up for it, John Joe Shelby, and hopefully that period will last longer than the sort of 2 or 3 game period he's used to.
Bede just says Samari looks like a beast when he came on for Leicester. I just want to know, do you think we were ever actually close on bringing him in?
Yeah, it was a player they really did try to bring in, and ultimately I'm really pleased in a weird kind of way that they didn't, because I don't think you would have seen the spend on the likes of Callum Wilson in the summer that came after that bid.
Okay, Kenny's just explaining he thinks some of the block information was missing or not clear on the home printed tickets. People were in our seats on arrival, says Kenny. Yeah, it does tend to happen at friendlies. Hopefully, as I say, the club with season tickets will certainly be a bit better organised at the weekend. Billy says, no, me, Keith Fraser, Wilson and Jones in the team. We could go after Ben Godfrey and Jeff Pike. We are managed by Manwaring after all. A lot of Dad's Army jokes going around at the minute from people. Do you reckon Jamal Lewis will come good and make the left back or left wing back position his own, says David L.
I think it's a great opportunity because I think as good as Matt Ritchie is, and I was having this conversation at St James's Park on Saturday with my former Shields Gazette colleague Miles Starford, and he was quite unequivocal in saying, I don't believe Jamal Lewis can knock Matt Ritchie out of that position. I'm of the opposite opinion. If I'm Jamal Lewis, who's 22, 23, and I'm looking at a converted winger playing in that position, and I am actually I'm not a fullback, I am a wing back by trade. I'm looking at this saying, that's my position, and I'm going to knock you out of this position. And I think he's got all the tools to do so. What he lacks, which they both have different skill sets. Matt Ritchie can't really defend for toffee, being brutally honest. He gets caught out quite a lot defensively. He has improved recently, but isn't great, particularly against the better side. We've seen him caught out quite a lot. Jamal Lewis can't defend for toffee either. They're both not good at that. What Matt Ritchie gives you is good competitive energy in your team, accountability, good voice, good character, and also excellent delivery, whether that be from set pieces or whether that be from just open play. Jamal Lewis, on the other hand, gives you, although Matt Ritchie has a good engine, Jamal Lewis is an even better engine and has the ability and a bit more speed about him to get up and down the park much quicker. So if I'm Jamal Lewis and I can't knock John Joe Shelby out of that position this season, then he needs to take a hard look at himself, in my opinion.
Okay, John Ball says we should have gone for Max Aarons rather than Lewis. We took the wrong fullback. What would you say to that?
Max Aarons is top class. I've got absolutely no doubts about that. I think they probably did. I mean, they could have taken the lad Godfrey as well. And I've been shouting from the rooftops since they got relegated, Norwich, that if you are going to sign any 2 players from that side, the 2 that I would have signed were Aarons. I would have signed Aarons, the fullback, and I would definitely have signed Todd Cantwell. And I think it's amazing how Todd Cantwell is still sitting in that position. If I'm Aston Villa and I'm wanting a Jack Grealish type replacement, Todd Cantwell is absolutely the top of my list. An incredibly graceful, quite languid, but really stylish footballer who can create goals and score goals in an attacking midfield position. So they're probably, look, you've just got to look at the type of players that Norwich are producing over the last few years. I mean, Jacob Murphy's eventually come good. It's taken him a while. He needed to go away and grow. Probably could have done with a couple of years longer at somewhere like Norwich and improving his game. But they've got a bit of a conveyor belt down there at Carrow Road, and you can see that that's probably why they're finding themselves in the position that they are. That they're even if they drop down, they're able to sell a player for significant money and reinvest that and improve the team and come back up. So yeah, I think they've got something good going on down there with a lot of really talented footballers.
Yeah, I would agree. Donald says, do you think with the fans back, we will see an inspired ASM? He was good when he came on against Norwich.
You can tell he thrives off it. You can tell he does. Yeah, I think he'd been pleased with what he heard and saw the other day. Did he look the fittest to you, Steve?
He didn't, but Norwich were awful. Newcastle weren't much better in the first half. And look, I get it. It's a pre-season friendly. It's against a team you're going to be playing. Nobody wants to give too much away. Bruce certainly didn't give away anything about his starting lineup for next week, although I think most of us can guess it within one or two players. But ASM when he came on was a huge difference. Shelby, we knew he had a good half as well, but just it's what it does to the crowd. And the one good thing about the crowd was it was full of young'uns. Kids probably going to their first game. Around me, there was 2 or 3 kids there with the very first game with their parents. And that's what kids want to see. Somebody giving it a go. Somebody, going forward. Somebody with a bit of magic. And that's what ASM's got. And whether you like him or not, whether you think he's a maverick or, you think he's too greedy with the ball, he gets people out of their seat, including me. Do you know what I mean? And you want to see somebody like that at the club. We'll keep a hold of him. And Willock signs on the dotted line, which, is more or less done now. Wow. That we haven't lost any of our players and we've brought in Willock. It's not great, but it's not the disaster it could have been, you know what I mean? And I'd still prefer to have another forward. And I know you're convinced that, we've got more forwards than I think we've got. But look, it's an aging team. We can't make the same mistakes going into next year's transfer window pre-season, but I think we'll get away with it. It's down to injuries and suspensions, but ASM, great player, love him, and I think he does buzz off the crowd.
Well, I would argue that we talk about that, but about it not really being much improved. But there are players who actively are improving, and I'll put Jacob Murphy right at the top of that. I think Jacob Murphy is a better player now than he was 12 months ago, and he's probably a better player now than he was 6 months ago. He physically looks different. His body's transformed. He looks quite muscular, strong. He's kept that speed. And I think Newcastle United have got a really, really talented sort of right back who can create at one end and do a decent defensive job at the other end, which is what he's had to learn. And I would argue they're probably in a slightly better position than the team that ended last season because Jacob Murphy's better for it. I think Jamal Lewis will be better for it. I think he's a good player. And I think, like I say, I think he might end up knocking Matt Ritchie out of that team at some point. They could have done with improving in certain areas. And I'm not saying with the forward areas is I'm not saying I think Newcastle have got enough up there. I don't think they have. But with the numbers, I don't think they need to add another. It's almost they need to upgrade Dwight Gale. They need to sell Dwight Gale and bring a better version of him in. Really, that's ultimately what one of the things they should have done this summer. Because they've got another 3. They just needed a better version of Gale. But if Gale comes firing and Gale turns up as the player who played during lockdown, the first lockdown, where he's scoring against Liverpool, scoring crucial goals in games towards the end of the season. I think he bagged 4 or 5 at the back end of that season. Looked lively, looked sharp, looked instinctive with his finishing, which he did on Saturday. Then who's to argue against him? He's a decent player, but I've always got those question marks about whether he can really produce it in the top division.
Yeah. Paul Gibson just wants to know why we're not in for Abrahams, only 34 million. Him and Wilson up top, 2 wingers getting the ball in. 4-4-2 seems lost in the game now. Why aren't we in for Abrahams?
They're just not. I think the player himself's got bigger fish to fry than Newcastle United. I think that's the absolute. If you're going to be very, very basic about it, so Arsenal want him and Roma want him. Why the hell would he come to Newcastle United?
True. Look, I mean, there's the rumours flying around about Harry Kane as well. I mean, I still think he might stay at Tottenham. I'm not sure he'll move now, especially with them spending 100 million on Grealish at Man City. They've missed out on Messi. He's going to PSG. I just don't think a deal can be done. I think he may stay at Tottenham. But if he doesn't, a lot of talk about Callum Wilson possibly going to Spurs. Could you see that?
Callum Wilson was a player that Spurs did. I was quite surprised this summer Newcastle signed him that he didn't end up at Spurs. I thought he was going to be signed as the backup striker to Harry Kane. A lot of the talk earlier in the summer that you hear around the football world was that Wilson was going to go to Tottenham. It never happened, and I think Newcastle were presented with the opportunity and got that deal done quite quickly in relative terms. Well, in Newcastle's terms. But yeah, I think if Kane went now, would they go for Wilson? I would suggest no. Because if Kane goes, I think they'll be reinvesting that money in a player who would cost them probably upwards towards £100 million. They'd be looking at the likes of the Inter Milan striker they were linked with and others to come in and fill Harry Kane's void. I don't think they'll be taking a Callum Wilson. If they did buy a Callum Wilson, I still believe it would be as a backup to another more high-profile striker.
Tom Lynch says, a lot of band talk tonight. He says, if Newcastle United was a band, what band would it be, Liam?
Oh, do you know what? You've got to stick to asking me simple football questions.
Joe Walker, Toon Tipster says, aha. I don't know whether that's in the Alan Partridge sense. Aha! Maybe. Gary Milliken says, the Police. I'm not sure where this is going to go, to be honest. I would say Dire Straits.
I would just describe them as like the type of band that you could turn up to a gig on the Friday and they'd be utter shit, and then you'd turn up the next week and they'd be decent. They'd be like the most inconsistent band you could imagine. That's how I would imagine Newcastle United. Yeah,
Mud, because we sometimes players that were stuck in mud. Maybe so that was another band, or Tiger. Yeah, it was Tiger Feet they did, wasn't it? Yeah. Dire Straits I think is pretty good for me, especially with the takeover falling flat on its face. Mad Mark says, enjoy your trip down to Abbey Road at the weekend. Thank you. He says, what message are you going to write on the wall outside the studio? I'm going to put Premier League is corrupt. That's what I'm going to put, I think. Because that's exactly what I feel like putting. I might put something else, but at the moment, that's what I'm going to do. But I'll give it a bit of thought. I didn't realise you could do that, actually. That just shows you how ill-prepared I am before I go down there. But I'm looking forward to it. Flapjack says, since ASM got a better contract, all I've got is the impression he doesn't want to be there. I don't trust players like that. If you're not committed, do one. A lot of talk about that.
To me, that's look. I respect anybody's views, but for me, that's a really one-dimensional way of looking at things. Look, they've been at it since the day they came. His agent talk. It only took 6 months for the exit talk to start. The new contract came. They've been at it, but realistically, if you're Alan St-Maximin, do you not want better for yourself when you see Newcastle United showing very little ambition? I would. I can't argue with the guy. But the flip side of that I would say is he signed a contract. Newcastle United find themselves in a really strong position because he signed a 6-year deal not too long ago on much improved wages, one of the highest earners. Newcastle United don't have to sell. Somebody could turn up tomorrow, West Ham, Aston Villa, Everton, somebody like that. That's probably the type he would go to. They could turn up and suddenly say, right, well, we'll give you 40 million. I don't believe Newcastle United would deal. Because they've got the strong hand in this case. I think it would take a lot more than that. And what I would say about Alan St-Maximin, and I think I've said it on this show before as well, if a big club comes in for an Alan St-Maximin, they're going to expect a ready-made professional for a start and a ready-made performer on a consistent basis. And anybody out there watching Alan St-Maximin, we forgive his faults, that he isn't very consistent and has big lulls in a season, picks up a lot of injuries, didn't start many games. Steve Bruce talked at the weekend, actually said he's played something like 390 minutes in 12 months, something like that. That's quite incredible. And if you're a big club, turn up suddenly expecting to sign Alan St-Maximin, you paid 60 million quid for him, you're going to expect a lot more than sometimes what we see at Newcastle United. Look, that doesn't mean he's not a great player. Doesn't mean I rate him loads. He's a type, like you said, Steve, he gets you off your seat. And he's a type of footballer, God, really, that's what we want to see. It's great having great lads in midfield who do all the grafting, they'll tackle their mother and, they do anything for the cause and kiss the badge. But really, what you go to football for is to be excited. And Alan Saint-Maximin excites like very few players can.
Yeah, it gets people out of their seats and fantastic player. Lots of band suggestions coming in. Sad Cafe is one. You've got to be a certain vintage to remember some of these, to be honest. There's another one as well. Bad Company, says Tim Cairns. Slade, says Simon Wells. The Pretenders, says Bede McElwee. The Wurzels, says Gary McBurney. But yeah, No Direction instead of One Direction is another one that... Bad Company. Yeah, I like that one as well. Plenty of these coming in. 100% Mag says, question for you both. Would you get rid of John, Joe and Hendricks, Darlow, etc., and then use the money to bring in Rondon and a few other of our targets? I mean, it's not the way it works at Newcastle, 100% Mags, at all. If that was the case, then I think Steve Bruce and his team would probably love to do that. But that's not the way it works, is it, Liam?
What I would say is it's like we're not playing Football Manager. We're not going to, you have to have takers for these players. You have to be able to get these deals done. Dropping 2 midfielders and a goalkeeper to sign a striker is not how you build a squad. It just isn't going to happen. It's lunacy.
Yeah, Gary Hannon says, music for NUFC, could it be AC/DC? Lots of these suggestions coming in. The Eagles, because this year we are going to soar, says Yano. Wow, now there is a bit of confidence. Okay, Liam, let's look ahead to the first game of the season, West Ham, a team which we did well against last season, but obviously, there's a crowd in. We've seen some positivity towards the manager. We've seen some negativity towards the manager, and we've seen some negativity towards the owner. Crowds are back. It's going to make a difference. But what's your feeling about the game this weekend, and how do you see it going?
It's another one of those that's really difficult to judge, isn't it? I don't think Newcastle United will be as bad as people have been predicting. I know that there isn't a lot of confidence and a lot of positivity out there, but I think Newcastle will be all right this season. I think a lot's going to depend on injuries. And again, that's ahead of Sunday as well, that if Alan Saint-Maximin's fit and firing, if Callum Wilson's fit and firing, if Miguel Almiron stays fit, if Joe Willock comes through the door, stays fit, if John Joe Shelby is the version of John Joe Shelby that we know, if Jacob Murphy continues on his upward trajectory, if the goalkeepers are as consistent and good as we expect them to be, and if they can improve a little bit defensively, then I think Newcastle will be all right this season. West Ham are a mixed bag. For all the positivity of last season at West Ham, they haven't got any strikers. Saeed Benrahma has done really well in pre-season, but scored 1 goal, I think, for them last season after signing for big money. And you look at West Ham and say they've lost Jesse Lingard, who was a large part of their resurgence at the back end of last season, scored a lot of goals, played a lot of good games. They haven't got him. They've effectively lost their Joe Willock going into this game. I would say Mikel Antonio is their main threat. And I do like their midfield, of course. Declan Rice, Souček, Kufal on the other side. They've got some really, really good players, West Ham. But I think I always look at games against West Ham and Tottenham, and you always feel in the Premier League era that Newcastle United can get points against them, whether that be at home or whether that be away. And I'm looking again on Sunday to think, can Newcastle United start off the season with the 3 points? And I'm not betting against it. That's my opinion. It might not happen. It could end up being 3-0 West Ham, and the knives will be out for Bruce nice and early. But I do feel like Newcastle United will at least get a point out of this game, and I'm seeing them sneaking this one 2-1.
Great stuff. Quick prediction for where we'll finish this season, Liam?
14th.
14th. Okay, I'm going to mark that down. We'll see where we're at the end of the season. Right. As always, mate, great to see you. Catch up with you next Tuesday, and have a good week, pal.
Cheers.
Critics attack. It feels like I've been talking